Hi, and welcome back to the DPAF podcast format. I wanted to ask the question today of why is free speech under attack in Great Britain? And there's lots of different ways to answer this. There's lots of different reasons behind it. I wanted to take a few minutes to try and address these different reasons and give my thoughts on why it is. And I mean, when it comes to the lockdown and the attack on free speech, we're always looking at the concept of coercion. You know, we've got to force people to do these things for their own good. And the reason we've got to force people to do them is because we, the government, don't think they would do it voluntarily. We don't think people would lock down voluntarily, so we've got to force them to do it. Or we don't think people acting in their own best interests are actually acting in their own best interests. And so we have to force people to do things they don't want to do, and that really sort of automatically leads us into the argument about free speech, because free speech is people saying what they think, saying what they want to say, and if anyone's got a problem with it, it should be not with the person doing the speaking, but with the receiver. If the receiver of the free speech has got a problem, that problem is with them. But what we've done as a country is we've made the speaker the problem. We've made the speaker the criminal. We've got to make the speaker the person to curtail their impulses on speech. And we have this argument about it's offensive. We can't be offending the receiver, so the speaker's got to curtail their speech. And how do we define what offensive speech is or isn't? Well, we don't really define it. We just kind of use it retroactively as a weapon. So we say that's offensive. You now have to stop speaking your mind or saying what you were saying. You've now got to be silenced. You've now got to be cancelled. And what it really does is this offensive, quote unquote, speech is really political speech we don't like. It's political speech that is contrary to the government. It's political speech that undermines government authority. And I think that, again, it's about the problem, or the reason we have to curtail free speech in these times is because there's too many people saying that they don't like the state of affairs. And the state of affairs in Britain is too much debt and too little freedom and too many distractions with things to take people away from the debt problem, to take people away from the lack of freedom problem. And we use these distractions. We use the health crisis as a distraction. We use racism as a distraction. We use gender warfare or bad gender relations as a distraction, when really the problem, in my view, is too much debt, which of course has to be covered up with less and less freedom. It's almost like an automatic attack on free speech by default, rather than just a sort of a problem that's unrelated and coincidental to the lockdown. So I want to address social media. Obviously, over the last 10 to 15 years, social media has emerged, and it's allowed more people to expand their speech. They can reach a wider audience, like I'm doing to you right now, and it kind of gives everyday people sort of a voice to challenge government authority, establishment authority, and if they're persuasive voices, it undermines the government position if it's widespread. And I think there's also been a move by government to exploit social media. You look through this health crisis, all these government ministers, it's almost like the celebritization of government. They love being on television, they love being tweeting, they love being on the radio, they love being online, on YouTube. And so they kind of see themselves as sort of quasi celebrity figures. They're building a political base of their own. And they do it through, making controversial comments, controversial statements, things like face masks forever and all this kind of crazy stuff. They don't mind contradicting the official government position. They closet it in ambiguous language. And so it creates this sort of government mismessaging going on, and they also use that to attack British people's free speech. They never sort of come out and say, British civil liberties have got to be respected, free speech has got to be respected, freedom of association's got to be respected. They just go out and sort of brazenly trample over British civil liberties. And, obviously I believe that the government have a right to free speech, just like everyone else does. But of course, a lot of the speech that's going on online, there's text censorship, there's media censorship, and it's all about manipulating the most popular voices. If there's a voice online that's contrary to the government, they get censored, they get deplatformed, they get demonetized, they get shadow banned. Whereas if there's a voice online that promotes government position, they get promoted, they get exalted, they get indulged. And so it's another way of curtailing free speech is through manipulating the reach of different voices. And this is what the internet should not be. I mean, if the internet is the market square or the public square, people should be able to say what they want to say. The great thing about YouTube or these video platforms like I'm on, people can click on stories they want to listen to or videos they want to see. They can listen to people they like, and they don't have to be forced to hear stuff. Whereas if you give people a limited choice, like we have on television, when I was growing up, it was just sort of channels 1 to 4. People older than me will say it was just channels like 1 and 2. You had a very, very narrow choice back then. Now, of course, what's good is you have much more broad choice of people to listen to, of voices to hear, of places to consume news and information. And this is a sort of a challenge to, government authority, which is why they've sought to suppress free speech. We also have this issue in the economy of almost two-tiered economics. We have the wealthy getting wealthier, we have the poor getting poorer, and we have this sort of schism or dividing line between two groups of people. We have the workers who are not able to build wealth because their money is manipulated through the government being on the dollar system or the pound being on the dollar system. The government are able to print money to inflate away the value of people's labor, whereas people who own stocks, people who own shares, people who own real assets are able to increase their wealth at an exponential rate. There's also a big transfer of wealth from young to old through borrowing or through burdening young people with endless debt, so that consumption can be consumed today by retirees or older people. I think it's totally counterproductive. I also want to mention, race relations and also the obsession of Sky with social media racism. You'll have seen this story in the news. I've talked about it a few times. I mean, Sky are just obsessed with social media racism, and there's a couple of issues at play here. One is that social media is essentially a competitor to Sky. Sky used to have a sort of almost like a monopoly platform for sport in Great Britain. Now people are able to go on social media and consume sport or discuss sport outside of the Sky platform. So social media is essentially a rival to Sky, so it's kind of in their financial interest to sort of blacken it through saying, oh yeah, social media is a bad place, you better go off getting your news on Sky or your sports consumption on Sky. But of course, I'm sure social media companies could make a similar argument about Sky. I mean, if it's offensive to go on social media, why is it not also the case could be made that it's offensive to listen to some of these manager press conferences on Sky, or the Sky News anchors on Sky, or some of the things that go on Sky? I mean, anyone can make the case this stuff's offensive. Also, these social media racists are these sort of straw men that you never see. Like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said, it's people in their basement or people in their bedroom with quote unquote nothing better to do. So if these are people with nothing better to do, why are we dedicating a Manchester United press conference to talk about them? Why don't we talk about people that do have things better to do, that are, you know, high flyers in society, that are high achievers in society, that are, you know, people that are, you know, great people doing lots of things for the community. If Manchester United want to talk about things that are outside of sport, why don't they talk about positive things? Why do they talk about negative things? And of course, I'm mentioning Manchester United here because them and Sky are very, very close business partners. I mean, Manchester United has always been given priority for matches on Sky and attention on Sky, and both of those companies have grown, you know, exponentially due to their great partnership. So Manchester United have been parroting this sort of Sky political agenda of social media racism or racism in the stadiums or whatever it is. They're obsessed with race. They're obsessed with dividing people. They're obsessed with curtailing free speech. So I suppose going back to the original question, I mean, free speech is under attack not only from the government but also from big corporations who want to maintain their market share. They realize consumers have more and more choice to, you know, leave their company, stop spending money with their company, go to another company, and they're looking to prevent that from happening. So I suppose there's a few things in summary. Free speech is under attack because, you know, consumers, the members of the general public, have more choice about where information can come from to them. They also have more of a voice themselves. So, you know, the establishment is needing to restrict people's options or blacken competitor options from the government. The government's also looking to exploit the benefits of social media speech themselves on an individual level and on a collective level. I mean, every kind of government agency has got its own social media account. They're dishing out press releases and tweets and all sorts of stuff every hour of every day. So just kind of blanket government propaganda everywhere you look. There's also free speech under attack from corporations that don't want competition, and there's also these underlying problems in society, most importantly massive debt that society holds, and you know, the government is looking to distract people from the debt, from the poverty, from the impending financial collapse with you know, distractions such as a health crisis, such as race relations, such as gender relations. And, you know, it's all a lot of fraud. We need free speech so people can give an honest account of why they're unhappy, and so we can get back to a united country where everyone is on the same page. And, you know, by shutting down free speech, we just prevent that from happening. I want to end on Lawrence Fox, who has the Reclaim Party, and he did a poll that I read about. And it said 50% of British people felt they could no longer say what they want to say, or they could no longer speak freely. I don't know if that means that the poll was, you know, the results of the poll are in question, because if people are not feeling like they can say what they want to say, we got to call in question the results of that poll that asked that question. But it's interesting. Why should British people not be able to feel like they can say what they want to say? Why can't everyone just say what they want to say, and then we know how they feel, and then we can take it or leave it? I'm not someone that's afraid of free speech. I'm not someone that's afraid of being offended. I think we've, you know, perpetuated this culture of offense or offensiveness, or everyone needs to be offended. It's totally counterproductive. It's totally pathetic. And, you know, we need to embrace and support all types of speech, people who like you, people who don't like you, people who say what they want to say, and it's the healthiest way. It's sort of a competition. It's a competitive marketplace of ideas, and the best ideas can flow to the top, and we can move forward from there. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll talk to you soon.